Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from So Many Frustrates and says, my 24 female best friend 23 female did something horrible at a mutual family friend's wedding and blamed it on my younger sister, 19 female. I'm considering cutting ties with her, but I'm having a hard time. I read it. This is a bit of an unusual situation, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can. The story involves myself, 24 female, my best friend Caroline, 23 female, my younger sister Nicola, 19 female, and our mutual friend / groomsman Daniel, 28 male. Using real names because I know Caroline doesn't read it, and if anyone who witnessed this happens to see this, I'd love for them to get the actual facts of the story. So, over the weekend, a very good family friend of both my family and Caroline's family was getting married. Caroline and I have been best friends for years. We met when we were toddlers. Our mums were best friends and our sisters are friends, etc, etc. You get the picture. We knew that both of our families would be invited to this wedding and we're looking forward to it for months. It's important to note that Caroline's family and my family have a ton of mutual friends, and this was going to be a very large wedding. Guest count was in the 500s. Whoa. Everything was going fine and dandy until Caroline got completely wasted. She kept talking to me about how hot one of the groomsmen, Daniel, was, and how she had a crush on him for years, but he showed no interest. This was probably because he was in a serious relationship and had been dating his girlfriend for up to 6 years. The girlfriend decided not to attend this wedding because she didn't know the bride and groom very well, and because Daniel would be a groomsman, she wouldn't be able to see him very much either. Fast forward a couple of hours and Caroline is hanging all over Daniel. She's constantly asking him to dance with her, get her drinks from the open bar, etc. She's point blank throwing herself at him. It was embarrassing and painful to watch. I tried intervening a couple of times to get her off of him, but she snapped at me at that point and I decided it wasn't my problem. Furthermore, Daniel wasn't completely pushing her away. He looked like he had a few drinks in him as well and seemed somewhat interested in Caroline. I decided that if he didn't care, I certainly wasn't going to. If he wanted to throw his relationship away, it was none of my concern. I tried. I didn't witness the next part, but by the end of the night, Caroline and Daniel were having sex in a different room of the hall. Yes, it escalated quickly. To their misfortune, someone, I'm not sure who, just that it was someone's mum who knew Daniel and his girlfriend but didn't know Caroline, walked in on them. And for some reason, Caroline told this woman that she was Nicola, my sister. I don't know if she was embarrassed or drunk or what, but she purposely identified herself as Nicola so Caroline herself would not be in trouble. Word quickly spread that Daniel and Nicola were caught having sex, and Nicola was mortified. People were talking about how disrespectful, home-wrecking, rude, slutty Nicola was. I honestly can't even blame them. Had I not known better, I'd be thinking the same things. On top of that, Caroline has gone around actually telling other people that it was Nicola and confirming the rumors she started. The bride and groom were pissed. Everyone was talking badly about my sister and Caroline seemed to not care. In fact, when I confronted her about the situation at the wedding, she straight up denied it. Had Daniel not confirmed that it was Caroline he was hooking up with and not Nicola, I might have even believed her. The next day, Caroline texts Nicola a half-hearted apology about the whole thing, saying she was so drunk and didn't know what she was doing. The text included a lot of lols and ha-has, so I'm not sure how seriously Caroline is taking the situation. She doesn't seem to realize how mortified Nicola is. Nicola genuinely thinks that her life is ruined. We live in a very tight-knit community, and a lot of people have heard the false version of what went down. I'm at odds with what to do. Up until this point, Caroline had been a very good friend to both I and Nicola. I'm not sure if I can forgive her for this, especially considering her lack of boundaries about how bad the situation really is. Should I dump her, or should I give her another chance? Our friendship will be different regardless. My family sees Caroline in a completely different light now, so even if I forgave her, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the same things we used to. Hang out at my house, do things with my family, etc. What should I do, Reddit? Now, I'm trying to look at this if someone done this to one of my brothers, and there would be absolutely no forgiveness there whatsoever. She threw your sister under the bus and then is not really taking responsibility for it, not really apologizing, thinking it's almost like a funny matter, a little joke, maybe something they'll laugh about in the future, which is absolutely not the case. No matter what happens, you said there was 500 people at this wedding. I imagine this was quite big news at the wedding and spread quite quickly. So I would want this to be corrected in some way for the sake of your sister. I'd maybe even talk to Daniel about this and tell him to clear this up. He seems to take some of the responsibility for it. I mean, it doesn't make him any better. He cheated on his partner, but hopefully he'll take some responsibility for that and hopefully help your sister's reputation, because I can imagine a lot of people are looking at your sister in a different light at the moment, which is just not on. She's completely innocent. But OP did edit the post and says, at this point, a lot of people know that it was Caroline with Daniel and not Nicola. However, I'm not sure how many is a lot. Our family friends know, but there were a lot of guests at the wedding who knew Caroline's family better than they did mine. I'm sure these people still think it was Nicola. Edit 2. Another issue is that Nicola is also terrified of the potential ramifications from Daniel's current girlfriend. I have absolutely no updates on the situation with the girlfriend. I don't know her well, and I don't know what Daniel has chosen to share with her, if anything at all. Edit 3, because a lot of people are asking me how I could even consider remaining friends with Caroline. Prior to this experience, she was honestly a great best friend. Of course, we've had our ups and downs like all friends do, but she has always been a kind and caring person, and I really valued our friendship. I've known her my whole life, and the evening at the wedding was very uncharacteristic of her, including her coming onto a man who was in a relationship. Throwing away a friendship with someone you've been close with for 15 plus years is extremely difficult. However, I'm prepared to do that if it's the right thing to do. So the top comment with a reply to this was from Other Kind of Mermaid, who says, if Caroline wants to continue your friendship, she needs to make this right and tell everyone that she lied. If she doesn't, then I would personally cut ties. Being drunk is no excuse for what she did. I think Nicola needs to stand up for herself as well. She should be very clear with people that she would never do something like that. Tell her not to let someone else ruin her reputation. If Caroline won't set the record straight, Nicola, you, and your family can. Opie replies saying, thanks for the suggestion. I haven't actually considered asking Caroline to go public and own up to the situation. I think I'll do this. I have no idea how she will react. Caroline is usually a decent, moral person, but she also hates confrontation, so I wonder how she'll take that. My family and I have been trying to set the record straight, but it's really hard to undo a rumor that has spread around to so many people. A lot which we are not that close with, mostly because nobody actually wants to talk about it to us directly. Most of the talk goes on behind our backs, but of course we know it's happening. So OP did come in with an update and says, first off, I wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who responded. I definitely did not expect such a large amount of help and guidance from everyone. This community is awesome, and I really appreciate everyone's time and advice. Unfortunately, could not respond to very many people's posts as I left the thread overnight. And once I woke up, it was locked. So I figured the least I could do is provide an update. So about a week and a half ago, Caroline casually called me and asked to sleep over. She wanted to attend an event downtown, and my place was much closer to the event than hers. At this point, it became very clear that Caroline had no idea anybody was upset with her, despite the fact that Nicola and I hadn't spoken with her since the wedding. I told Caroline that I didn't think her sleeping over was a good idea. When she asked why, I brought up what happened at the wedding. She laughed and said Nicola needed to grow up and get over it. And it really seemed like she expected me to agree and laugh along with her. Well, Reddit, I took your advice and let her have it. I told her how selfish and inconsiderate she was, and if it truly was no big deal, then she'd have no problem taking full responsibility for her actions and publicly acknowledging that she was the one who hooked up with Daniel and not Nicola. I told her she needed to make things right because Nicola was still mortified over something she didn't do. At the end of the phone call, I gave her an ultimatum. Post an apology to Facebook and spill the beans about what actually happened, or our friendship was over. thanks to the Redditor who suggested this. To my complete and utter surprise, she did it. I thought it would make me feel better, but people were actually commenting on our Facebook status, commending her bravery and the fact that she did the right thing. I was super annoyed because of course she would never have done this had I not forced her to. But at the end of the day, Nicola is happy and her name is clear. Oh, and an update, Daniel and his girlfriend, according to his Instagram, they are happily together. Whether or not she knows about Caroline, I don't know and I don't care. Not my train wreck. I would have been given that ultimatum with the intention, of still not being friends with this person just to get them to tell the truth. And who the fuck is commending her for doing what she did? Oh, you're so brave. Oh yeah, you slept with a bloke who's in a relationship. It takes two to tango and all that sort of stuff as well. So he's equally at fault. But praising her for saying all this on Facebook. I slept with a guy in a relationship. I then blamed it on someone else. And I'm only really saying this because I've been given an ultimatum about it. Gee whiz. And even if they do stay friends after all this, I kind of hope they don't. But it's never going to be the same again, like they said before. She can't really go around their house with a sister there. No one's going to look at her in the same light. No one's going to trust her. As simple as that. But what do you guys make of this situation? What would you do if you was put in that position? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Artistic Minute 4365 and says, am I the arsehole here for losing it and calling my father a weak and pathetic man in front of his family? My father has always been against any confrontation or arguments. He's extremely passive, refuses to stand up for himself and avoids any conflict. If someone isn't paying attention while walking and bumps into him, he insists it's his own fault. If his employer would mess up his salary, he wouldn't bother fixing it. If a mechanic didn't properly repair his car, he would just accept it as is. This unfortunately resulted in a tumultuous childhood with my insanely narcissistic mother. She controlled his every move. She got him to quit his job and be a locked-in stay-at-home dad. She had him do every chore. She insulted him at every step. She cheated on him relentlessly and even brought affair partners into our home. She enjoyed making his life miserable every day, and he never questioned it. My extended family, God bless them, were there for me so many times, as much as they could be. They tried for years to make my father leave, but he never budged. When she would direct her anger onto myself in the form of screaming, insulting, or general demeaning, my father never once found the guts to stand up for me or support me. When I was a kid, if I cried to dad about something mum did or said to me, he would sweep it under the rug or just insist I forget about it. Hell, he would even try and justify it. As I grew older, it really set in for me how messed up this was. My mother gladly kicked me out of the house when I was 18 and my father just sat there and looked sullen. Didn't say a damn thing. I joined the Air Force almost immediately and got stationed on the other side of the country. The dynamic was awful. I could have easily gone down the incel route if not for therapy and the amazing people I met along the way. It took years for me to get in a better mental space. I was filled with hatred. My mother left my father 2 years after I got stationed and utterly destroyed my father in the divorce. She was killed later in a DUI with one of her affair partners. I took a lot of joy in hearing that it took her hours to die. And that's when I really knew I needed help to process things. I'm almost 30 now. I have a girlfriend who is perhaps the best thing to ever happen in my life and fully understands the situation with my family. I've learned to not allow myself to be consumed with anger and resentment by my past. Or so I thought. You'll see. And instead put that energy to my future. I've been extraordinarily low contact / near no contact with my father since I left. As much as I try, I cannot make that connection with him. I recently went to a family reunion and brought my girlfriend with me. My father was there as it was his side of the family. I have many issues with him, but he is family, so whatever, I guess. I made sure to avoid him. I was chatting with my uncles when I heard my father talk in the background. He was discussing how a co-worker of his was going through a divorce as he discovered his wife was having an affair and was positioned to have a very favorable divorce on his side. My father remarked how his co-worker should work instead to forgive his wife, and by his own words, set a good example for unity and forgiveness, and how he believed he set a great example for me in that extent. I swear, it was like a switch went off in my head, and I was mentally back being the rage-filled 18-year-old. All these years, and he never learned a damn thing. I turned to him and asked if he was fucking serious. He looked at me and started to stutter. I know the next minute was pure word vomit, and I can't relay it perfectly, but to sum it up, I shouted how he was a pathetic father, pathetic man, and his family all know he's a disgrace of a human being who'd rather his son be treated like shit than defend him because he's a fucking coward. No one would ever see him as an example to live by. His wife would rather fuck half the neighborhood than even touch him, and he should never ever believe anyone respects him. I began to derail and ramble between my shouting, and my girlfriend quickly took me out and drove me home. It was insane just how quickly being away from him made me feel better. She just held me when we got back and told me it's okay. Again, best thing to ever happen to me. I was ashamed of how I lost it and now going to resume my therapy. That's a given. However, I'm glad I finally unloaded what always needed to be said onto him. Extended family is pretty mixed with reactions. His brother/my uncle said it was time for him to hear it from me. My grandparents are pissed I did it in front of the entire extended family, with some saying I should have done that behind closed doors instead of everyone. So the first commenter said to OP, it sounds like you finally got to express the pent-up feelings you've carried for so long. While the outburst wasn't ideal, it seems like it was a necessary step towards healing. It's good you're resuming therapy to process this further. OP says yeah, afterwards it hit me that although it was very cathartic, it definitely wasn't the most appropriate way to handle it. Another commenter says, he sounds like a gentle, kind and well-meaning person. He directed what is very clearly anger and resentment for your mother at him. It's a bit more complicated than being an asshole or not. You seem to have gotten some catharsis out of it. I just don't believe he's the one you really wanted to scream at, and from the sounds of it, he was also a victim of your mother too. And while he was the adult and should have known better, he obviously didn't. Being non-confrontational isn't some character flaw, it's psychological, and he probably needs therapy himself. Screaming at him and demeaning him actually sounds like something your mother probably did/would do, and I worry about you if that's something that actually made you feel better about yourself. OP says yes, I fully admit he was a victim of my mother, but he was a victim who had a support system he never wanted to use. He fully let me be a victim my entire childhood because apparently it was too much effort to try, and to this day doesn't believe he needs therapy. Never Too Much Thought says all I can say is based on your post and this interaction is your anger is deeply misguided and you're failing to recognize the truly horrifying thing. You're behaving like the mother you actually should hate. OP says, oh trust me, I fully hate her as well, but she is gone and there is no use in holding a grudge against a dead person. I'd hope though, after his son making him an outsider in his life, his family openly joking face to face about his failings as a father, and his ex-wife draining him for everything he had and making him start over in a one-bedroom apartment. His friends slowly leaving his life one at a time out of embarrassment, that he would maybe have at least one moment to reflect and maybe consider he should have done things differently. On OP getting therapy due to his past trauma says, yeah, either way, I need to hop back on the horse for therapy. It'd be good for me. As for my grandparents, I really have had to look back at how far this pattern of enabling goes back. I know they all did what they could to try and help, but it always seemed like there were times that more active measures could be taken. Times where people should have been far more stern with addressing his behavior. The older generation on his side are the classical, their family and we stick together no matter what. And I have to think whether his passiveness and enabling is something he picked up on his own or something he learned from his own parents. OP updated the post and says thanks for the advice and recommendations, even amongst some of the you're the arsehole. However, some of them needed to be addressed because they were either hilarious or cringeworthy. One, some of them were very angry. They kind of confused me at first until I saw their comments further down or saw their profile and saw rants about double standards or complete non sequitur ramblings about women. So yeah, not helpful advice, and they were great dark reflections about how I could have turned out if not for the support in my life. 2. some attempted to portray my dad as a humble, kind, caring, sensitive old man who I was just being a big bully to. This was a very good insight into how enablers of abuse get away with so much in today's world, because so many people forget how they are part of the abuse themselves. 3. Some were attempting to mentally dissect me or have a gotcha moment with me to pull apart my story. That was generally asinine and had to step away from those before they asked for my cranial measurements or something. So it was pretty much immediately when I was up the next morning that I realized I needed to resolve the events of last night. I first spoke to my girlfriend and gave a sincere apology for having her see me like that. She reassured me that nothing was wrong. She had known me for years and had always known me to be level-headed and understands why I kinda snapped. She herself has a history of dealing with narcissistic families, so she absolutely understands the dynamic. She only really told me that it would be best to work on spending time around my extended family, since my father will always be there. I told her don't worry. I'm immediately going to talk to them afterwards to figure that out, so that part's fine. Looked like kind of an arse in front of her, but I'm making sure that doesn't happen again. I also informed her my intentions to resume more therapy, just to keep myself steady, which she was happy to hear. I called my grandparents and sincerely apologized as well for putting such a sore dent into their family reunion, that it wasn't appropriate, and while I still feel it felt good to say that to him, it should have been privately, not in front of everyone. I also said that going forward, as much as I love spending time with them, since the family always hangs out in one group that my father will always be in, but now I can't handle being around him. I need to distance myself occasionally until I feel comfortable interacting. I told them that I am, nor would I ever be establishing an ultimatum or demands of them, and that either way, I need to step back. I guess during my apology, an explanation, I was kind of just going on a tangent because my grandfather interrupted me to calm down. He told me that after I left, people kind of separated or slowly started leaving, and they eventually were able to talk to my father one-on-one. I guess seeing me have such a freakout resulted in my grandmother having a mini freakout of her own, when she started talking to my father, resulting in her kicking him out. While I have a great relationship with both, my grandmother has always been extra protective of me, so seeing me that way must have set off a fire in her. My grandfather then said that it had become a bit of an open family secret, my father's failing. His brothers taunt him about it and generally don't have a great relationship with him, and for my grandparents it's always just uneasy. But seeing me the other day and how it still affects me so much has really liked them for a lot of people that it was really bad. They began to try and say sorry if they didn't do enough, which I very adamantly retorted that they did more than what anyone could have expected. It was very emotional for a minute, but culminated in them telling me that they've decided to distance themselves from my father for the time being. And I've given him the ultimatum that unless he has a deep introspective and regularly goes to therapy, that distance may become permanent. My extended family, I've been told, are going to try and reach out or call or whatever. But I asked them if they could relay to them that it's not necessary, and that I'm fine and I'm sorry to them as well for ruining the day. Which again, they told me I shouldn't apologize for being hurt. Since then, extended family have sent some messages with the general consensus that it's okay, with some older members complaining about my lack of respect towards my father. And finally, I text my father hoping to meet at a local coffee shop and have a final talk. I met him and he didn't look good. I think his parents tearing into him finally got the message through. That's so many things I could have said, but instead I asked him first thing if the co-worker he gave the advice to took it well. He said that neither him nor co-workers interact with him anymore. I asked him if he truly 100% believes that every single thing he did for me as a child was for my benefit. He didn't really say anything. I then finally asked if he has any regrets for how I was treated as a child, and if he thinks he ever did anything wrong. He looked utterly defeated and just mumbled that he could have done more. I could have poked and prodded and could have gone on another rant, but instead I told him this should be goodbye and I hope he gets the help he needs. I think finally unloading my frustrations was what I needed to finally be able to move on and find peace. Absolutely need to keep on track for therapy and admit that a public bitching moment isn't okay, but I should be fine. Couple of top comments on that one. The first one says, this is an interesting one. The ability to control one's failures, yes, that's what I call your situation, is very powerful. You'll do alright. I Want to Be says, congratulations sincerely on owning your actions. No matter how justified, You acknowledge your outburst was uncomfortable for others and likely not appropriate in that setting. It takes incredible strength of character to admit your failings, even if you have no idea how else you could have reacted in that moment. That you immediately communicated that to your loved ones is a huge sign of how respectable and genuine you are as a person. I really hope you keep moving forward from this situation with the same mindset. Good luck. Jessica says, not the arsehole. It sounds like you handled things well after what happened. You took responsibility by apologizing to your girlfriend and family, and it's clear you're committed to moving forward by focusing on therapy and healing. It's understandable that you snapped given everything you've been through. It's also clear that your outburst made your family realize the impact your dad's behavior had on you. Don't beat yourself up over it. You've done what you needed to do to move on, and it seems like you're on the right track now. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.